And now it is our pleasure to be joined by Slug. What up, man?
What's up, man? How y'all doing? Thanks for having me on the show.
Thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks for coming back. And there's so much to talk about, but maybe let's start with Minnesota. How is it going up there?
It's cold. It's really cold. It's freezing. Typically this time of year, it's always kind of cold here. But today is extra cold.
Yeah, I mean, even here in the Middle East, it's cold these days, so I can only guess what it's like over there.
Yeah. Let me think. I'm trying to figure out where you guys... Yeah, I guess it is kind of cold there right now, huh?
We're kind of in the middle of nowhere. Like it's a cold desert, meanwhile.
Yeah.
So, speaking of Minnesota, I mean, you have a new album, the album Vida Local.
Yeah, Vida Local. We released that, and we've been running around, playing shows, supporting it, having fun. It's been a good time, especially considering the people that we've been touring with, Cam Atlas and the Lioness. Both of them are on the album, and so it's been a lot of fun being able to perform the record off of the album that they're on, but also just to hang out with these guys extensively. Just beautiful people, man. Great people.
So it's you're feeling the road vibes?
Very much, yes.
And before we get to the album itself, we must applaud your work ethic. I mean, because every 2 years there's an Atmosphere album, and that is one impressive pace to maintain.
Yeah, how do you keep up?
I appreciate that. I'm trying to be faster. I want to put out an album every year. That's my goal. We've always tried to put out as much content as possible, just because why wouldn't you? And so there's always been weird little side projects or different little things that we will put up between albums.
Yeah, you have like 1,000 EPs.
Yeah, like Cyclone EPs or with Felt Records or just different things that I've been involved with. And I guess my approach has always been like, people have allowed me to make this my job. This is what I do, so I want to do it. I don't want to be lazy. I want to do it to the best of my ability. And I think that kind of comes from my parents. My parents were working class, and I watched them always working. And I think that's just kind of how that was what I thought you're supposed to do as an adult. So now that I'm trying to be an adult, I just want to stay working,
But you're still an artist, and you still have to find every new project a new angle. How do you keep up with reinventing yourself?
The funny thing is, I don't think I've ever had to reinvent myself. I've been lucky, I've been fortunate in that I can portray who I am in my music, and I can rely on my own personal evolution as a person, as a human, to be the quote unquote reinvention.
Yeah, I really think that in your music we can hear you growing up with your audience. Do you feel like you're still growing as a person and still coming across in the music?
Oh, I hope so. That's what I want. I want to grow as a person. I aspire to continue growing as a person, and I have no choice but to reflect that in the music, because that's how I know how to make music. That's my approach to music, is to take the things that I'm experiencing or feeling and put them into the music. I listen to. Well, here's the thing, man. My technique changed about 10 years ago, a little over 10 years ago. Right around the time that we were making a Lemons album, mm-hmm. I started writing to the music. Like before that, I used to write rhymes, and I would write them in a notebook, and I would write them anywhere. And I wouldn't even always listen to music when I was writing them. I would just write rhymes, and I would just have a beat inside of my head, Then when Life Gives You Lemons, I finally had gotten a laptop. And I finally had started writing with the laptop. Like I had a laptop before that, but I didn't write my rhymes on there. I wrote my rhymes in notebooks. But when I got the laptop, during at the very, very beginning of Lemon and Sad Clown EP. So right around 2006, I learned how to write rhymes on a laptop. And I'm going to come back to that in a minute. But so with that, suddenly I had this device that I could put the music in there that Anthony gave me, and I could write on a Word document right here. So it was like I didn't have to have two separate utilities. I didn't have to have a notebook as well as something to provide the music. I had it all right in one space, and so I could just put some headphones in. I could listen to the music that Anthony, the beats he was giving me, and I could write to them, and that changed everything for me. I started writing directly to the music, and now I don't even really write rhymes anymore unless I'm writing to the music I want it to go to. Mm-hmm. So when you hear an Atmosphere song post-2008, when you hear an Atmosphere song today, I wrote those words to that music specifically.
Did it change the way you interact with Ant?
Yeah, it did kind of, because it allowed him to play a larger role in the process of the writing as it was happening. He could go, oh, I see what you're doing there. Hold on. I'm going to do a change-up right now. He would do the change-up, and then I would follow the change-up. Or he would see what I was doing, and he would do something to fit what I was doing. So it made the whole thing more organic. So instead of taking a producer's beat and a rapper's words and squishing them together, what it did is it really started making music together. And I don't mean we always sat down and made it together at the same time, but it just meant that we were both way more aware of what the other one was doing and what the other one's vision was for each song. For better or for worse. You know, it's funny because there are people who will say that Lemons was the beginning of our downfall. Some people will say Lemons was their favorite album. Some people, everybody has their own opinions, but the one thing that is not an opinion, it's just fact, is that there was a change that occurred there.
Yeah, it's a pivotal album.
Yeah.
Speaking of, of all your albums and the processes, do you have a favorite album, actually, from all the catalog, the huge catalog of yours?
I don't know if I have a favorite album. Usually my favorite album is the most recent one. Mostly not because it's the best, because I don't know what's the best album. It's like asking me which one of my kids is my best kid. They all have traits and qualities that are different from each other. That I find ways to love my friends. Which one of my friends is my favorite friend? I don't have a favorite friend. I don't have a favorite kid. Each one of these people, each one of these songs, each one of these albums that are in my life, there's traits and qualities that I love about them, just like there might be traits and qualities about them that annoy me, And so I could speak on every album as a piece-by-piece basis, but I don't have a favorite. Like, currently, the one that I like the most is the newest one because it's still unraveling itself to me. It's still showing me what it is, The thing about writing the way I write and writing about the things that I write about is that it's almost like I'm on an adventure learning who I am. And sometimes the song that I wrote will provide me with insight into who I am after the song has already been released. Specifically on this album, there's a song called Delicate on the new album that when I wrote it, I thought it was about one thing. And now that time has moved and the song has been released and it's been given to people for them to have their own experience, and people respond to it, I start to see things about the song that I didn't even know were there, and I realized how personal that song really was. And it starts to show me things about myself, and I feel like that's a huge part of my relationship with my music always, is that I learn from my own music. I learn things about myself from it, especially specifically when I start to perform them live and become more familiar with where the emphasis goes. It's interesting because I don't know if other rappers have this experience. At some point I would love to sit down with somebody like Ari the Rugged Man and talk about this like the way we're talking about it right now, or maybe sit down with somebody like Big Daddy Kane, or maybe sit down with somebody who also has a expansive catalog of stuff, and LL Cool J, or, because I believe some rappers are all about the technique, and some rappers are all about the words, and some rappers, we all have our own relationship to why we love this music and this art form, and so I would like to find out how my experience is different from some of these other artists' experiences,
We would love to be a fly on the wall in that conversation.
Why be a fly on the wall? Why not
a talking
create
fly
conversation? I mean, you guys have a radio show, right? So you just have to get two of us on the phone together at the same time.
I actually had Rugged Man and Big Daddy Kane on the show in the past, so
let's make it happen.
Yeah, and then just get us on the phone and then feed us the questions that will allow us to go into that type of a conversation.
Have you met
and
Big Daddy?
if you can catch us on the right day, where we let our personalities come through and maybe let some of our ego go down. And that's kind of why I specifically said those two guys, because it's so down to earth. Even though in the music, it's very aggressive, and also very technically proficient, but in real life, they're both super down to earth guys. And so I feel like that would be good conversation right there,
For sure, and maybe I need to travel to the States again and do that in the location.
There you go. Me, you, and Ari, the Rugged Man, sitting at a pool somewhere in Florida. That would be great.
Yeah, I'm down. I mean, we already met in Minnesota in the last sound set, so it can happen. Matan is coming too.
Yeah, here's hoping.
But you mentioned Delicate before, and that's a song I've been planning to ask you about, because you've always been very introspective in your raps, even from the get-go. If you look at songs like Lost and Found, for example, but it seems like you still manage to add more insight with each album. So a song like Delicate, for example, is that something that you think you could have written in your early days?
No, I wasn't. I didn't have the experiences that were required for me to be able to have written that. That song is definitely the song that comes from an older person who is ready to admit that they have flaws that are, the younger version of me, I blamed all my flaws on my surroundings, and I blamed my surroundings and my upbringing, and I blamed things that were outside of myself. I never went internal to look for to look for the cause of my problems, if you will.
Well, you had the song called Scapegoat, so.
Yeah, exactly. Whereas at the end of it, I blame myself, but I still went through the list of it's this, it's that, it's this, it's that. And so even when I said it's me, I still was just saying, that song, the funny thing about Scapegoat is people saw that as kind of like a conscious song or a political song. And really, I always kind of saw that song as more of a fuck the world kind of song. Fuck everything. Fuck everybody, including myself. Less conscious and more, I guess, I don't want to say rebellious because that's kind of a weird word. It's a pretentious word. But arrogant. Scapegoat is a very arrogant song. But people like to point at that one and go, this was part of the conscious movement of rap. And I don't argue because, everybody's interpretation is real. It's their own. And I don't ever want to tell somebody their interpretation is wrong. But more so, my interpretation of that song was not that it was a conscious song, but more of an arrogant song.
And, there are so many songs that I can just talk to you and chop it up with you about. For example, on the Lemons album, you had a song like Guarantees. What was your mind state writing that one?
I was kind of, I think, writing from a place of who I am. If I wasn't rapping, I would be probably driving a truck or a vehicle, delivering things would be my job, more than likely. And so I was trying to figure out, okay, who am I? And how do I see my family structure. And how is it any different than how I would see it or who I would be if I didn't have this career? And what are the common themes that go between the two, you know? Because obviously I was fortunate enough to be able to have this as a job, but at the end of the day, it's still a job. It's just a job. You know, I don't like to put what I do on a pedestal. I like to see it for what it is. I do a job. Now, how people decide to accept it or take it into themselves, that's up to them. Their interpretation is theirs, or if they want to, you know, put our music up high because it helps them think through some of their life, et cetera, that's cool, but that's not, you can't blame me for that. That's them. They did that. They took the music and they did that for themselves. I am doing the job that I'm supposed to be doing right now. And that job could have been anything, man. And so Guarantees was me trying to like find the common threads between what I am, regardless of what my job would be. What would be my life? What would be my complaints? What would be the things that are on my mind? And I find out they're the same things that are on my mind, even as a rapper, potentially almost famous rap guy, still has the same problems as the guy I would be if I was driving a truck. And that was kind of what that song was really about. And when it comes to the chorus, you know, the only guarantee in this life is that life is precious. Your life is so precious that it's worth dying for, which obviously sounds kind of ironic, or I don't know what word you would put there, but it...
Love life till I die.
Love life was really less about trying to find, even though there's words like beauty and neat little rose and all these words that are in there, that song to me was really kind of a depression-based song. But, you know, I didn't realize that until after the song came out. And after I was performing it, I didn't realize how dark that song was. I thought I was making an uplifting song. And really, I think I was making a song that was kind of describing and articulating how depressed I was at the time and how hard I was trying to present an identity that wasn't depressed. You know, I don't know if you guys remember, but there was a time when depression was embarrassing. Now, thankfully, we're more open about it, and we can discuss these things without the stigmas that come attached to it. But you know, 20 years ago, there were a lot more stigmas attached to depression. If you were a man and you were depressed, at least, you know, in the communities that I grew up in, if you were a man suffering from mental health issues, then you better be a vet. You better be a war veteran, or have you know, addictions. You couldn't just be a regular guy who had mental health issues, because that meant you were weak. And thankfully now, we've broken through those stigmas, and we have conversations and dialogues about what it really is. And I appreciate that. Myself specifically, I appreciate that. But I think that it's good for the kids that are coming up now to realize that, hey, you might be dealing with these things, and it doesn't make you it doesn't mean that you're less than the rest of us. You know?
That's part of the magic of the song, because you're coming from a depressed place, but you're kind of convincing yourself to hold on, and it's kind of camouflaged.
You know, at the time, I didn't know that that's what the song was, though. At the time, I was writing all kinds of things. You know, that was the era where my life was very different than what it is now. I was sleeping on couches. I didn't really have a home. I don't want to say that I was homeless, because I feel like that might be a little over the top, but I didn't have a home. I was couch crashing, staying in different places, staying wherever anybody would let me stay, usually with different friends or different girlfriends or what have you. And so I always had my notebook, so whenever the household that I was at would go to bed, I would sit there, I would find a little light somewhere in the house and sit there and just write. And a lot of that record, the God Loves Ugly record specifically, came from that lifestyle.
Is it hard for you to perform some of those songs, coming back for those emotional experience?
I have to find the bond. I have to find I have to find my connection to the song now. And I'm glad you asked that. Because my relationship with a lot of these songs, it's not just like, oh, that's my jam and I can rap it. My relationship with them is if I don't feel confident or comfortable with these words, I'm not going to say them on stage in front of people. So when I do go back to the older material and find songs to perform, once in a while we'll go back and be like, hey, let's pull Saves the Day out and start doing that. Or a better example would be Vampires or Love Life. Let's pull this song out and perform it. I have to go through it, and I have to find how this song is still relevant to who I am today. And once I find it, and it's an instrumental thing. Once I find it entirely, then I don't have a problem performing. Here and there, I might change a couple of lyrics. And it's funny because I think people will see the lyrical changes as like me just trying to update it or make it like fun or make it part of the show or make it an Easter egg. But really, oftentimes, the lyrical changes that I put on the older songs is just to make sure that I can say these words without lying. I don't want to perform a song about being something that I no longer am. So now I have to figure out how to make that song relevant to who I actually am today,
Do you have a song that you will never perform again?
Oh, sure. I will never perform Primer again. That was a song. On the internet, a lot of people love that Trailer Park Chicken.
Oh, from the Overcast album, right?
Yeah. I learned early on, that was a lesson for me. I made this song as kind of a tongue-in-cheek statement about domestic abuse. And people took it the wrong way. They only focused on the negative, and they made that song become this like mantra for domestic abuse instead of against it. Almost like I was shockingly trying to... when I saw people saying those lyrics back with the incorrect energy, I abandoned that song, and I'll never go back to that. There's another one that I'll probably never perform again called The River.
Oh.
Maybe someday I'll be able to find a way to perform that one, but the problem I had with that song, after I had performed it just a very small handful of times, I felt like I was exploiting death in order to have a good song, if you will. So after that song was made, I was very careful forever about how I wrote about the loss of people. And later in life, I wrote about my father's death. I wrote about Idea's death. And those songs were actually written from a very different space. Those songs were not written about the death. They were written about my experience within the death. Whereas I feel like The River was like, I was like vicariously writing from like the position of the young man's mother. I was like assuming things that I had no place to assume, And here's the thing, man. Obviously, I didn't have any ill will in my heart when I wrote that song. I wasn't trying to hurt anybody's feelings. But over my early years, I wrote a lot of things that if I could go back now and change them, I would, to make sure that it's always, I'm never implying somebody else's voice here. It's always coming from my voice. One thing I've learned over the years is that similarly, there's a song on Lemon called Dreamer, where I'm writing about a woman who has 2 kids and she's going through this stuff. And now I look at that and go, man, a woman should write that song, not me. I shouldn't be trying to write from the space of being a woman. I should always write from the space of who I am. I can talk about her situation, but I should talk about it from my perspective. I should never presume to speak from the perspective of another person.
I think it's very clear
if that makes any sense.
Yeah, very much. I think it's very clear in That Night, where you do speak from your perspective.
Exactly. And that's how I should speak. I should speak from my perspective, and it's been a long road of learning things, man. From when I go back to the 80s, from when I started rapping to now, the amount of things that I've taught myself, I don't know if they have anything to do with rap, but more about writing. The things that I've taught myself about writing and what I'm willing to use my voice to do. Similarly, I will never write another song again to hurt another person. I go through some of my older songs and realize, wow, I literally only wrote that to like hurt somebody. I used my pen as a sword, and I used it on another human who doesn't even have a sword. They didn't even have a pen to write back. Like, if I want to hurt somebody, it's got to be another MC. Or it's got to be fucking, the administration, my president or something like that. Somebody who can hit back. But I should never, ever use my pen against somebody who can't hit back.
Did you have...
And now I never will. I've learned that lesson as well. I hurt my father before he died. I found out after he died from one of his friends that the song Little Man hurt him. And to hear that after he passed away, man, it fucking broke me. You know what I'm saying? Like, and it made me realize, like, what am I doing? Like, I'm putting these things out there for these people to enjoy, but at what cost? And so, that was a big lesson for me.
That's a song that actually I really like. One of the songs that really touched me, but I could understand why he would be offended by it, of course.
I've learned a lot over the years, and I apply everything I learned, for better or for worse, because, like I said, there's fans out there who don't like any of the new material, and maybe the reason is that they don't feel it is some of these new things that I've learned and I don't do anymore. Maybe they miss that. I don't know. It's not really my place to know. But I know that it is my place to learn what I need to learn and to apply it. If I don't, then what am I doing? You know what I'm saying? Like here's the thing, man. If someday this all goes away, at least it was my fault that it all went away. And that's what I intend, is that if I get fired from this job, I want it to be because I fucked up, not because somebody else fucked my shit up. And that's how I've always approached this from a business and from a personal standpoint. That's why people know me as being so in control of my management, of how the visuals, everything that comes out. I've always been such a control freak about all of it, because if you're offended by some shit that came, then it's because you're offended by me, not a decision that some manager made or some booking agent made. Like, I can't let anybody else have the steering wheel to crash this plane. If it's going to crash, I got to crash it myself. I want to be the one that's responsible for all of the mistakes, because I get to learn from them.
Did you have any specific point when you said consciously, I'm not going to talk about Lucy anymore, I'm going to focus on myself, I'm going to focus on other things?
Well, all I did was shift how it was presented. Because even when I was talking about Lucy, I was talking about myself.
Yeah. And
I did reach a point where after Fuck You, Lucy, that was the whole point of the song Fuck You, Lucy, was to say, okay, after this, I'm putting Lucy away. Now, if you hear me say the name Lucy, it's only to reference that era.
Yeah, it's
of when I was
kind of
talking
ironic.
about Lucy. Yeah, and so it wasn't so much that I was like, let me change the subject. All I did was I changed the name. I made sure, or I did my best to try to make sure that people understand that Lucy was me. There was no girl named Lucy. People have looked at some of my ex-girlfriends and said, are you Lucy? Are you Lucy? And it's like, man, that's so corny. You really think that I'm that fucking simple? You know what I mean? Like, and so Lucy was always basically a metaphor for my own entitlement issues, my issues with addiction, my issues with Lucy was my trauma, but the majority of my trauma was self-imposed. I can't blame another human being for any of Lucy.
So you've changed this
I made sure people understood that the concept of Lucy Ford was Lucifer, but even within that, I'm not trying to say that the devil was controlling me. He's like, no, I was the devil that was controlling me.
Same as Kendrick did with the same name afterwards.
Yeah, but I don't think he knows who I am, so I could never say he bit. But I did do it first.
That's the rapping vibe.
I'm sure there's a guy who wrote books that did it before me. I'm sure that there's no way that nobody never considered using the name Lucy to be a metaphor for the devil. You know what I mean? Like, there's no way I was the first one ever, but maybe I was the first rapper.
Okay, so I want to get back to the new album, to Mi Vida Local, because it's new, and I really I'm still in the process. I think we both are still in the process of rediscovering aspects of it in every listen. But there are some themes that I think stood out, and one of them is the family theme. I mean, you've written songs about the family before.
Yeah, it's a common subject.
But was that something that that you put a bigger emphasis on this album?
I don't think it was intentional. It just happened to be such a present theme in my life the year that I was making the album, And so, a song like Trim, which obviously is about me and my wife, I didn't go, hey, this album needs this song. It's just that I wrote this song because this shit was on my mind. And this album is less of which I will say this, I think moving forward, many of my albums will reflect this more. But this album was less of a concept in the sense of if you look at the Family Sign, that was obviously a concept album. Life Gives You Lemons, that was a concept album. But slowly, the concept is less about this theme, but more about me. I'm the concept. My life right now is the concept. And when I realized that, it made me go, actually, man, everything I've ever done has always kind of been that. And we kind of talked about it already, where it's like people have allowed me to continue to evolve as a person, which means I'm also being allowed to evolve as an artist, which means the music is going to evolve with that. Now, one thing that we always did when we were younger was be prepared for when somebody interviews me and asks me what this album is about, because people always want an album to be about something. And I've reached a point over the last 10 years, probably last 5, 6, 7, 8, whatever. And people go, what's this album about? And it's like, well, this album's about me. And it's like, well, what does that mean? That's boring. There's no story there. And it's like, you're right. That is fucking boring. There is no story there. How are the songs? Because these songs are representative of who I am. And if you like them, then you will probably like me as a person. Mm-hmm. And if you don't like them, you probably wouldn't like me as a person. And it's pretty simple like that. Now, still, there's always going to be overarching issues that occur in my life that do make it onto the album. That kind of are the bigger representation of who I am right now. And not this album. Well, what is that? This album? That is my immediate surroundings. Well, what does that mean? Well, that means my inner Illuminati. I'm not throwing darts at, on Fishing Blues, man, I threw darts at everybody. I threw darts at the cops. I threw darts at rappers. I threw darts at things I love, things I hate. At this one, it's a lot closer to home, which is why I came up with the album title that I came up with, My Local Life, because this album really doesn't go far outside of the couple square miles that I travel with every single day. This album isn't about being on tour. This album isn't about, traveling. And this album isn't about women on the road or women in general. This album is about me, my wife, my friends, my close friends. Even the songs that are on there where I'm complaining about people, those are real complaints about real people that are close to me. You know what I mean? And so it's so this album, I guess, when you hear the family thing on it, that's because I really spent a lot of time around my kids and around my wife over the last, 12 months while making that album.
I think you kind of leaned in this album to the kind of weird definition of dad rap. You have the Atmosphere handle in Twitter, and without getting into the definition of it, can you explain to us what do you think that the dad rap era kind of adds to hip hop, something that was missing?
Well, I think dad rap is kind of when I started saying it, jokingly, it was before anybody else was saying it.
Yeah, it's tongue in cheek.
Full credit. Yeah, it's tongue in cheek. But again, just like emo rap, I started saying it as a joke, and then I watched it become an actual fucking genre. So I thought, well, what if I start saying dad rap as a joke? This was a few years ago. And slowly but surely, I've watched it start to become a genre again. Jay-Z made a fucking dad rap record. I was watching journalists call his record dad rap, and I'm sitting there going, nobody's gonna give me credit, but I invented that shit. Same with the emo rap. Nobody give me credit, but I invented that shit. But anyway, all pride aside, to me, what it means is we've entered an era where you have 40-year-olds that are still rapping. You know, people in their 40s, even their 50s. When I was a kid, you didn't have that. I mean, aside from Chuck, you didn't have that when I was a kid. You weren't even supposed to be 35 and still rapping when I was a kid. Rap was only for kids. Well, now kids get to rap and grown-ups get to rap. So what are the grown-ups rapping about? And that's where dad rap comes into play. I feel like dad rap is a kind of a blanket term that covers a lot of stuff. But mostly what it covers is, I don't want to say conscious rap, but it covers rap that is aware of its own reality for older people. You know what I'm saying? And that's not to say that a 25-year-old can't make dad rap. If a 25-year-old has kids and thinks about dad shit, then yeah, if he's going to make some honest music, they can make some fucking mom rap, dad rap. You know what I'm saying? Like, to me, dad rap isn't about rapping about your kids. It's rapping about the things that you start to think about when you have kids. It's rapping about the things that you know to be honest and true. Because dad rap can be gangster rap. Dad rap can be thug rap. Dad rap can be emo rap. Dad rap can be any of these things depending on what it is that you're tackling and how honestly you're tackling. Mm-hmm. You know, the term dad rock, when people say dad rock, they think about the way the guy's dressed. They don't really think about what the music sounds like. But they think about the guy with the guitar wearing cargo shorts and a white T-shirt. Whereas, to me, I don't think dad rap is imagery. I think dad rap is really more about the actual content.
I think it's interesting because to me, and Tomer, as a 30-something-year-old, we used to listen to your music as teenagers, and it was always a couple of years ahead of us. We used to be 13 years old, and we used to hear what somebody in their 20s think about. And as you progressed, we progressed with you, and we stayed in tune. And now, I guess I'm going to have kids sometime soon. I have something to look forward to and kind of an insight into the future. It's very interesting from that point of view as a fan.
I think that is interesting too. You know, I feel like there's a phenomenon there that neither you nor me can take credit for. We're just a part of it. But I feel like it's a similar phenomenon to books or even movies. There's movies that you saw or that even I saw when I was younger, or books that I read when I was younger, that maybe I tried to connect with what was in that book. I tried my best, and I still enjoyed the book. But it wasn't until 5, maybe 10 years later after I read the book that I realized, holy shit, This is just like that fucking book. This is just like that book I read. You know what I mean? And I feel like what that is I think it's important for art like that to be available to us. You know, I would say that for me, Tom Waits was that artist for me. Mm-hmm. When I was in my 20s, I listened to a lot of Tom Waits. I read a lot of Charles Bukowski. But the truth is, I didn't really understand some of the shit Bukowski was talking about until I was in my 30s and I was still single and I was struggling with trying to love myself. I didn't really fully understand what Tom Waits was talking about until I started to resent the fact that I sat at this bar until they fucking closed by myself, not another person to talk to, you know? And I had to I still appreciated those books and records when I was younger, but it wasn't until I was older that I actually realized how much of the pain I've combined with that was inside of those books or inside of those records. And I guess that's kind of what we're talking about in a way, is pain. Even though neither of us are saying it, I'm going to say it. It is about pain. Now, it's also about joy and happiness, but mostly pain. Pain is something that I think all humans, we bond through that. You know, this is something that Idea used to always say to me, and I understood it, but I didn't fully understand it until it was too late. But he used to talk. He was way ahead of his time, by the way, as far as a thinker goes. He was like 19 years old, thinking about things that he should have, you know, not been thinking about yet. But as a kid, he would talk about pain and the bonding of it. He would say the reason why sad movies, sad songs, sad books, sad photos, those get more attention than happy ones. Because everybody can relate to the sad stuff. Not everybody can relate to the happy stuff because a lot of people aren't actually happy. We bond through pain. We feel it when there's a commercial on TV for please help these kids who are starving in this other territory. Can you please help? We see those and it affects us. And people will actually like get on the phone and the internet and send money. You know, it's like because we all. That's the thing that bonds us as human beings. You know, that's the thing that we have that animals don't have.
On a personal note, I have to say you talked about conjoining with the pain. And I've been a fan for a lot of years. I have Love Life tattooed on my leg for exactly the same reason you talked about. And you've helped me through a lot of pain. And I have to say, first of all, thank you for the songs that you make and the music that you give to the world to make their own. And I do feel a connection to you, although we never met and we never talked. And you have no idea who I am. And it kind of makes you feel part of a bigger thing. And I think that's kind of the magic of Atmosphere.
I don't want to interrupt you, but I want to remind you, and I really appreciate everything you're saying, but I want to remind you as well as anybody listening to this who is familiar with us, you actually did that. You dealt with that pain, and you got through that. And people oftentimes will say these beautiful things to us about how we were there for them or we helped them get through struggles and moments. And I always want to remind everybody, like, nah, you can't blame us for that. You have to take credit. You have to take responsibility for getting yourself through those. I and Anthony, we provided some music to be background music, to be part of your soundtrack to your movie, but that we didn't get you through that shit. We were just the background music, man. Like, because those I got my own struggles, right? I have my own shit, and if I'm gonna keep it fully real, you actually helped me get through my shit as much, if not more, than my music helped you get through your shit. You were gonna get through your shit. Now, what if you didn't discover Atmosphere ever? It would have been another artist. It would have been a different book. It would have been this movie. It would have been something. Because as people, the way we consume our art and the way we allow the art to become parts of our identities, you know, we end up looking at it as if those parts of our identities were the parts that gave us the strength. But the truth is, nah, you had the strength. And it might not have been Atmosphere. It could have been fucking Pearl Jam. I don't fucking care. It could have been anybody. It's just about you discovering something at a certain time in your life and then using it to be there in the background as you faced your struggles. But you can't really give me or any other artist credit for the help, because at the end of the day, if I didn't exist, I do believe in you, and I do believe you still would have figured out how to get to that shit.
Man, you're too modest. That's all I'm going to say.
No. I'm keeping it real, man, because at the end of the day, you fucking helped me pay my bills. You helped me be able to create a scenario where I could feed my children. You helped, there was a time when I was not doing well. Now I'm okay. I'm not rich by any means, but I'm doing good. You know what I mean? I'm okay. I'm upper working class rap. You know what I mean? And so, but there was a time when I was not. There was a time, like I say, I was sleeping on couches. You know what I'm saying? I had a son, and I didn't have a place to live. And it was people like you that literally, physically helped me get through that. And that's bigger than what I gave you.
I can agree with both of you, but, we still want to thank you for creating that music.
Giving us a soundtrack.
Exactly. And
well, it was my pleasure. You gotta imagine how much fucking fun I had making music. Dude.
Yeah.
This is the best. I've had a lot of jobs, dude. This is the best job I've ever had. I like you, man. I've always liked you, Tom. You're shit. And it was good to shoot. Thank you guys once again for having me on the show and allowing me to talk my shit. Because a lot of people don't want you to just talk your shit. They usually are just like, here's the 5 questions we got to ask. And I like conversations, man. So I really appreciate the opportunity to get on with you guys and have real conversations.
Thank you, man. It's
mutual, yeah. We've loved listening to your shit for years, so that's just the same.
Right on. Anytime. And anytime you guys either you come into the US, let me know. And if I'm anywhere near you, we'll get together and have a beer or some weed or whatever it is you guys like to do.
So, Slug, thank you very much for talking to us again, and hopefully we get to do this again next album, and hopefully we see you in the States.
Yeah, man. Best wishes.
Best wishes. You guys are the best. Take care.
Much love.
Peace.